Hi, this is Matt from MaidCentral. Hopefully by now you've downloaded your MaidCentral bill rate calculator and you can start playing around with some of the numbers and determining what it really takes to make a profit in this industry. I'll just walk through this calculator and help you understand all the fields. All the fields in orange are designed for you to fill out with your company information. So let's start there. So let's say you want your average employee to make $18 an hour, which may be what it takes nowadays to hire great people. Increasing wage inflation, you're seeing the base rate of targets and places like that, depending on where you're at, increasing. So let's say we want to be at $18 an hour. So the next thing we need to really take into account is how efficiently how efficiently do we schedule our employees, or how efficiently do they use their time? If they have to take a lot of breaks between houses or things like that, your efficiency may be lower than this. The average efficiency for teams is around 75% or lower. Maybe 70 to 75% would be average for a team of two or three. So that's travel time between homes, breaks, stops like that. So only 75% of their day is spent in cleaning time or billable time. So a very efficient company might raise this to 80% for teams. And so what that number does is it lowers what you have to charge in the home to be able to pay your employees, $18. So that's what the employee would be needing to make in the home at $22.50 just to hit that wage. But that's before we start putting in all the other costs of doing business. So some of these we don't want to change. So FICA and FUTA, those are federal rates. FUTA is variable. It's capped at a certain amount, so we just use basically 0.6%. FICA is 7.65% of the wages that you pay as an employer towards the cost of doing business. Work comp can be very different state by state. So in this example, it's low at 1.2% of every hour that they worked. So if you're in a state with high costs of doing business, some states this might be 15% of the wage. So that raises that to $3.38. So it really just depends on your state. So I'm going to put in 1.5%. So it's only costing us 34 cents in this example, but this can vary widely state by state. So you need to do that. Your general liability, again, this is going to be based on your company, but general liability is generally tied to your wages. So it is fluctuating with wages, somewhere between 1% and 2% for most companies. Your state unemployment, this was done for the state of Arizona, but your state may have higher or lower state unemployment cost. So you put that in there. You can find your rate for your company. They usually mail that out to you once a year. And then the final two is if you pay any holidays or do any vacation, you might want to kind of figure that into what it really costs to pay an employee hourly. So if you give 6 holidays and then 2 weeks vacation, you might have an extra $1.50 to $2 an hour of wages you want to bake in. So your total labor costs, these other labor loads, is another $4 an hour. So now we're up to $26.56 per hour. And then your other direct costs of doing business, so chemicals, so that's your cleaning solutions, things like that, equipment, uniforms, and transportation. So depending on how you pay, this may be baked into their hourly rate, but it is something to consider is to adding some of that into their wage, especially the transportation costs, especially with rising fuel rates, and figuring that in. So 10% would not be unusual. Between homes, $2.66 in wage added to the wage to kind of account for that. Supplies. So now we're at 452. So just the cost of doing business for this employee would be 3108. So before we make any money, we need to charge $31.08 for an employee if we want them to make at least $18 per hour and just cover our costs. Now, overhead expenses, this is going to be variable. And again, when you're small, this is going to be lean because you don't have office space. Maybe it's just you managing, all of the back office. You're the only person you're paying for office expenses. No other real overhead other than maybe some cell phone bills and some other things. However, as you grow, you need to account for this. So a very, marketing expense, all that stuff is gonna rise as you grow. So putting in a number here in terms of percentage would be helpful. I would recommend 25 to 45%, somewhere in there to give you a rough estimate of a company at scale of the cost of doing business. Obviously, the leaner you are, the more competitive you can be in what your final bill rate is going to be. But adding in some money into the hourly rate to cover that is probably critical so that you're charging enough into the future to cover your expenses. So now with that 40% baked in, our cost of doing business to what we really need to charge for that employee just to break even is now 4170. So again, if we're really lean, this number can go down quite a bit. Let's say we're small, just getting started, maybe 36, 39. I recommend estimating this a little bit higher so you're baking in some profits as you grow. And then profits. What do you want to make for every hour that they're working? What do you want to bake in for your company? A good rule of thumb is 20%. You can certainly shoot for lower profit margins, but it again, it's going to be this is a variable that really you're just kind of estimating here. But if you want to make 20% margins, you'd want to mark this up another 1043. So your target bill rate would be 5213. So, you can round that up to 53, round it up to 55. But that's really what it would cost if you wanted to make a 20% profit and be able to operate at scale with, the expenses of running a professional cleaning company. Now, there are other variables at play here that might make this a lot more expensive. So again, if you were in a state with really high workman's comp, we raise this up to like say 18%. You can see that number really gets driven up to closer to $60 an hour. So again, play around with the numbers, put in your numbers for your situations, really kind of figure out what would be competitive as an hourly rate to hire people. I'm not even sure $18 an hour is the number any longer. I think that you may find that it may be $20, $25 an hour. When you run those numbers and you kind of figure out how you're going to operate, this will give you a good starting point into what you need to charge to be successful in this industry. If you have any questions, just reply to the email and we'll be happy to try and answer those. Have a great day.